Cronos the New Dawn is a solid new survival horror game from Bloober Team that blends classic genre influences like Dead Space, Resident Evil, and Silent Hill into a tense atmospheric experience. Enough of that scripted bullshit. That's not how we do things here. Now you may ask, what's with that accent? Well, I was trying to sound like a foreign British guy. It's Tuesday, innit? No, it's fucking annoying. Shut the hell up. People everywhere trying to put up a fake accent, acting all classy and shit. It pisses me off. Imagine an Indian guy doing a English accent. Can I get the password to your computer? I am going to help you remove the virus. My name is James, by the way. I am clearly not a Pacalu Paquito. Oh man, everybody sounds like some foreign English guy these days, and I don't understand a damn thing. You get the picture though, don't you? Now I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of that. All I'm saying is tread lightly. Anyway, Cronos the New Dawn. This game is genuinely amazing, and seriously, it's very underrated. It completely flew under the radar, and barely anybody's talking about it. So I figured I'd make a video, suggest all you beautiful people to give this game a shot. Go out and buy it, or just get it online, you know. Nobody really goes out to buy games anymore. It's kind of sad. Now with all that crap out of the way, let's talk about the game. So Cronos the New Dawn feels like a solid blend of, like I said, Resident Evil, games like Silent Hill and Dead Space, but it definitely leans more towards action horror with some survival mechanics mixed in. Your inventory space is extremely limited, and you start off with very little ammo, so the game constantly forces you to make decisions. Do you engage in combat and burn your last 2 shotgun shells, or do you back off, reposition, and look for something like a propane tank to blow up the enemies? And trust me, the second option is usually the smarter move. And do you guys remember the Crimson Head mechanic from Resident Evil 1 Remake, where you kill the zombies and then later on they come back stronger and way scarier? Well, this game has a very similar system. One could even say it's directly inspired by it. Here, the zombies, or anomalies, whatever you call them, can merge together with the nearby corpses and evolve into a much bigger, deadlier threat. So when you take an enemy down, it's actually safer to burn the body if you know you'll be backtracking through that area. But here's the catch, you only get a limited amount of fuel to burn the bodies, so you gotta pick wisely. Now I know a lot of people don't like backtracking in their games. I personally don't have an issue if the level design is done well, and I've gotta say, the level design here is actually really good. All the areas you move through are tightly connected, which makes backtracking feel intentional instead of annoying. The atmosphere is gritty, dark, and oppressive. And honestly, this is some of the best map design I've seen in a horror game since like Resident Evil 2 Remake. The exploration in this game is genuinely rewarding. It's always worth taking a moment to check every nook and cranny because you'll find useful stuff like upgrade materials, ammo, a bottle of chemicals, or like the Brits would say, chemicals. And once in a while you'll come across these little pussycats, and if you pet them, they drop you some useful item that you can use to upgrade your suit. You also get the classic bolt cutters, like in pretty much every survival horror game these days, and honestly that's a good thing. In most games, bolt cutters are only useful for a short while. You open a few doors, then toss them. But in Cronos, they stay useful for the entire game. There are so many locked doors hiding valuable supplies that you really don't want to miss. It's always a great feeling finding a locked door and realizing you've got the bolt cutters on you. That said, this thing eats up a precious inventory slot, so keeping it with you at all times feels painful, but that choice is up to you. Personally, I never left it behind. I love this thing. The game can be pretty brutal at times. There ain't a lot of checkpoints, at least on hard mode. You only get to save when you come across these terminals, and every time you find one, it's pure relief. It kind of gives you that Souls-like feel, you know. The crafting system is very simplistic. You're making ammo, fuel, basic necessities, nothing too complicated, and I don't hate it. That's all I gotta say. I don't mind crafting in a game if it's done right, and this game does a pretty good job. The combat is slow and methodical, but it really packs a punch. Charged pistol headshots and well-placed shotgun blasts are your main sources of damage. Every weapon feels satisfying to use. No matter which one you decide to upgrade, you really can't go wrong. They're all viable in their own way. That said, I highly recommend you don't miss out on the double-barrel shotgun. You can find it in a room inside the hospital area, and trust me, it helps a lot. especially against the final boss. That guy can be a real Nimrod. Now I know a lot of jabronis on the internet have called this game clunky or too stiff. Look, if the game had you jump around like the freaking Doomslayer and destroy everything on sight, it would completely undermine the horror. So I think the slower, heavier movement is intentional, and overall the game feels well balanced. Of course, there's some puzzles in this game, and they're solid and simplistic. It never overstays its welcome. It's not trying to turn into a full-on puzzle game. I'm looking at you, Silent Hill. But it does a great job of slowing the pace, making you think between the combat encounters. They're intuitive enough that you rarely get stuck, but still satisfying to solve. Now I don't want to get too deep into the story since this is a spoiler-free review, but the premise here is genuinely fascinating. The game is set into 1980s Poland, and you play as a lone operative, simply known as the Traveler. At first, you believe your mission here is to save humanity, collecting their essences and whatnot, but as the campaign unfolds, things get quite interesting. That's all I'm gonna say. But trust me, I was completely hooked, all the way till the end. On top of that, there are plenty of throwbacks and references to other games and media, but I'm not gonna spoil any of those. It's better if you experience all that for yourself. I could honestly talk about this game for hours, but I want to keep this video short, so let me leave you with a few quick gameplay tips that might help you out in your journey. First off, upgrade your inventory as early as possible. I cannot stress this enough. You're going to need extra space. Also, during combat, keep in mind that the flamethrower gives you brief invincibility frames, so it's best used right before you're about to get hit. And finally, try to finish off enemies whenever you can, because just like Dead Space, they drop loot, and it can be very useful at times. I know I've been really positive on this review, and trust me, this game deserves all the praise. Now, if I were to nitpick, there is one minor issue that bothers me, and that is sometimes the enemies can damage you a bit unfairly. Let's say you're walking down the corridor, and an enemy bursts through the door, and you get hit with no time to react, so moments like that can feel a bit unfair, but trust me, that's a very rare moment in the game. I just had to mention it. Other than that, I got nothing much to complain about. So overall, Cronos gets a solid 8 out of 10. Now some people might say, only an 8? You sounded really positive. Look, here's the thing. On my scale, games don't start at 10. They start at 0. And the score depends on how much the game actually impresses me. And 8 out of 10 is a pretty good score. Now, if they ever make a Cronos 2 with deeper combat, a more fleshed out story, and more memorable characters, I could easily see this jump into a 9 or even a 10. I'm really looking forward to what Bloober Team does next. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm still learning and getting better at this, so thanks for watching. And until next time, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, keep your children away from Trump and Epstein's friends because they're full of crap.